I'm just going to record this so that way, if we find it interesting, maybe other people could get something out of this conversation. If I haven't met you before, or if it's been a long time, my name is Amanda Ryder. I'm currently the president of Raising Oak Cliff. This is the third year that I've had this conversation about, I call it the ABCs of education. Basically, if you want to send your child to a Dallas ISD school, it is super overwhelming. Now, basically, you can go to any school that you want to. It used to be you would have to apply for a transfer, and that they would evaluate it, how many kids are in the school. But I mean, if the schools aren't going over a particular number, you can pretty much go to any school that you want to. Now, we're not talking about the magnets and some of the other schools. I want to try and go through all of that too, so everyone understands. We're going to try and touch on all of that, but try to not be confusing, and also explain the Dallas ISD website. So as I told some people earlier, this is a small group tonight. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. If there's a school that you're interested in, throw it in the chat or unmute yourself, feel free. And I would like to make sure that you find another family that's currently going to that school so you can ask those specific questions. But before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know that Methodist Hospital, just down the street from most of us, is our main sponsor this year. And I really appreciate it because it's given us the opportunity to do some things like last month, we offered tickets to the drive-in movie theater, and they helped offset the cost, and also brought some really cool gifts to give away to the people that attended. I think there's some really cool stuff coming up through Methodist, and I just want to give them a few minutes before we get started to let us know what's going on in our own community. So Laura is the Director of Community and Public Relations for Methodist.
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, everyone. My name, like Amanda said, is Laura Mota, and I'm the Community Director for the hospital. I'm also an Oak Cliff resident, so I live nearby Kid Springs Park, and I have a four-year-old, that's with me right now. He goes to preschool at Collier, which is UT Southwestern, but he'll be hopefully starting first grade in Rosemont when he turns 6. So, but I really appreciate Amanda putting together stuff like this just as a parent. I mean, I think she does a terrific job. We were there for last year's event at Kid Springs Rec Center, and it was really well attended, by parents and by the school representatives. I mean, Amanda got so many schools to come and send some people to talk to us about the different options, and it was just wonderful. And we also, with partnership with Raising Oak Cliff, we do really fun things like the drive-in. We also bring some educational programs that one of our doctors is here to tell you about. We love being a resource for health and wellness subjects, and we also just like being a good neighbor and hosting fun events. So if any of you have an idea that you would like to pass along to myself or to Amanda about getting parents or kids more information, or doing just some fun stuff that we could support financially, we're definitely open to that. But I won't take any more time. I want to hand it off to Dr. Kenzie Saltarelli. And she's a fellow Oak Cliff resident like myself, and she's a pediatrician. She's going to talk to you about a new clinic that we're opening up on Davis Street and Tyler. So she'll tell you more about that. Take it away, Dr. Saltarelli.
Hi all, it's very nice to meet you. As Laura said, I live in the area, so I'm excited as a pediatrician to actually learn more about the school district, because it gives me a lot of context to try to take care of the kiddos in the area. And I know school is very involved in y'all's lives as families. As Laura mentioned, we are opening a new clinic on Davis Street and Tyler. I really wish that I knew when it was opening, but it's under construction. So you guys have probably noticed that construction site kind of near Davis Street Espresso over there, like on West Davis Street. It has a roof now. It does not have any walls. And so I actually have a meeting on Monday where we're going to get a little bit of an update on when this might happen, but we're hoping kind of like spring, summer. I'm going to be working there, and then Dr. Kyle Olent will be the other provider there with me. Kyle and I are both board certified in both internal medicine and pediatrics. So we both did a dual residency. So we're going to be able to take care of all of you all, parents, grandparents, kids, and we're really excited about it. I'm really, really looking forward to it opening. So we will be in touch more as we know when it's opening. And then the other thing I'll mention is that on January 28th, so in a couple weeks at 7:30 p.m., we're going to do another event. I'm going to be talking about screen time, which only gets more and more complicated for families to figure out what to do about. And so I'm actually, like, I spent a bunch of time today kind of trying to delve into the evidence that we have and the reasons for the recommendations, because a lot of times in your well child checks and your doctor's appointments, there's only really time to kind of like give you the surface level recommendations on what you should do. And I want to try to help us understand why those are the recommendations so that families can kind of make individualized decisions about what is going to work for them and what their priorities are. Because I know it's not easy right now to keep your kids off of the screen. So I look forward to hopefully seeing some of you guys again in a couple weeks. And like Laura said, would love to hear about any other ideas you guys have for topics that would be helpful to you. I'd be happy to come back another time.
Great, that's super helpful. So again, anyone, if there's a specific topic, I know in the past, I've thought sort of kids and anxiety would be a really interesting topic. I mean, the times that we're in specifically and just how to deal with that. I mean, hopefully that's not something that we have to deal with much longer, but, there's always a ton of topics that I think parents would like to hear more about. So I appreciate you coming on tonight and introducing yourself, and hopefully we'll all see you more and, over the next year or so.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So I'll just get started. Typically, I would have, one parent from every school in our neighborhood to, talk about what their school offers, what their experiences have been, what does it look like to apply to a Dallas ISD school. So I'll go through a couple of things that I've shared in the past. I can also go through my experience. I have a 6-year-old son. We live in Kings Highway. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll just send him to Rosemont. And I did. So he was part of the pre-K program last year. But before that, when he was 4, I started touring all these schools and what's the best fit. And like I said at the beginning, it's so overwhelming because there are so many options. And what makes sense? Because every school is different. Whether it's the makeup of the school, how big the school is, the school location. So there's a lot that goes into trying to decide what makes the most sense for you. Is it the neighborhood school, the magnet school, all of that stuff. But for pre-K, to me, it was just really easy. Rosemont's down the street from me. They had the pre-K program. We didn't qualify for the free the tuition-free program. So we had to pay, at that time, it was around $5.25 a month. I think they've lowered that, and they've also changed some of the rules about who does qualify for the free program. So don't feel like it may be a large charge for you. There is a possibility that you could qualify. If there's someone specific that wants to talk more about that, we can, but I also want to talk about what it is and what it's like to look at all the schools. I personally toured probably 4 or 5 different schools. I know people who have toured 20 schools, and I'm not exaggerating, because she just didn't know what would be a good fit for her. So, if you want to know more about those schools, again, I can put you in touch with various people who have toured schools or who attend those schools. I ended up applying to Solar Prep for Boys. I applied 2 years ago, and we didn't get in. Solar Prep for Boys is one of those schools that it's a transformation school. And so that means that you do have to apply. And then they have a lottery, and the lottery is 50-50 socioeconomic standing. So you meet a criteria or you don't, and you have to submit paperwork that shows how much you make every month. And then they put you in this or that group, and they literally like draw your name. And if you get in, you get in, and if not, you get put on a wait list. So we didn't get in for pre-K, and I say we, of course it was my son, but as a family, I usually talk in like the familial unit. We didn't get in, and so again, this is something else I didn't know. If you don't get in, you get put on a wait list, but then you have to apply the next year. So if that's the school that you really want, you have to continue to apply every year. And that was one thing that was really hard for me to get an answer to. The administration for the school didn't know. I had to go to like the second in command at DISD to understand, no, it just doesn't roll over. And I think the other frustrating thing is that rules do change. So just because it's this way one year, I think when they started this huge choice school program, your name did roll over because there weren't that many people applying. But now these schools are gaining in popularity, and so they start from scratch every year. You are put on a wait list. So what happened for us last year is, for this school year, I applied to Solar Prep again, and he didn't get in. But 2 or 3 months later, they contacted us and said, you have a week to decide. What do you want to do? So the wait lists do work. And then the other thing that I want to talk about related to applying, and then if you get in or don't get in or you get waitlisted, I don't think Dallas would ever say this, but I know of a lot of families that at the beginning of the school year, they contact the schools and say, hey, do you have any openings? So for instance, 2 years ago, I know someone who was really interested in Hernandez, Osimo Hernandez near UT Southwestern. It's a Montessori school. You have to apply. It's the same thing. It's 50% socioeconomic diversity. And so they draw 50% from this group and 50% from that group. But I want everyone to know at the beginning of the school year, if you want to change schools, just call the school and ask them if they have any openings. People start making their decisions, and especially this year, a lot of people pulled their kids from all these schools, so there were a ton of openings. And even now, I was on a call, it was one of those DISD choice schools where you could log in and talk to different schools themselves, principals from the schools, and even the principals in January were like, if you want to transfer, call me on Monday and we'll make it happen. So, if there's I would suggest going through the process. I think you have to apply, you have to submit your paperwork. But if there's a school that you don't get into, don't give up, is my point. Is if you really want Montessori and you you work downtown and you think that would work best for you, just keep bugging them, because I have no doubt that they will have some openings. That being said, there are some things that I want to show you, and I am going to share my screen. Now, this is something that, let me see if I can do this. Okay, so this is something that I have shared in the past, the last couple of years. I am a huge fan of Carrie Mitchell. She works as editor of The Advocate. She also did a really fascinating podcast called The Uninformed Parent. And if you're not aware of it, I really suggest that you Google it. If you just Google The Uninformed Parent, The Advocate, you'll find it. It's, I don't know, let me look and see how many. It's 14 episodes, and it's mostly all about Oak Cliff schools. Now, it's a couple of years old, so it might not, some of the leaders that are interviewed might not still be there. Like if she interviews some principals, so it's a couple of years old. They might have changed by now, but it's pretty fascinating it's from a teacher's perspective. It's from a parent perspective. There's probably 3 or 4 different parents that are interviewed about, I chose this school because of X, or I couldn't stop looking at all the numbers and what do they mean, but is that really the best reason to make a decision? So toward the end of the podcast, Carrie talks about 7 parent hacks on how to pick the right school. And I think this is really relevant because it's just like, where do you start? I think this is a good place for us to start our conversation about how do you pick a school. So number 1, take a tour of every school you're interested in, plus homeschool. Obviously, you can't do that right now, but Daisha mentioned earlier in the call, a lot of these schools are doing Zoom calls or virtual school tours. I wish it was a little bit more like literally taking a camera and like walking through the school to show you. I think if you've never been in a school, it's going to be really hard to like send your kid into a school that you don't know where the art class is, or you don't know where the cafeteria is. So I did ask DISD, I asked a couple of different people, hey, can you just walk through the school with a camera and record? They said it was a really good idea. That was a couple weeks ago, so I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, I realize how many schools there are, but I can imagine how overwhelming it might be as a parent to just let your kid go into a school without touring it. So I get it, but that's why I also suggest maybe finding a parent that has a student at that school now. So that might help you. Number 2, you can transfer to any DISD public school. And that is more about your neighborhood school. So, I live in Kings Highway. My neighborhood school is Rosemont, but I also looked at Reagan, which is closer to Bishop Arts. I also looked at Harley, which is near, it's in Oak Cliff. It's just on the other side of 35 by Townview. Now, this is a personal thing. I'll just tell everyone, I love that school. It's an early childhood school. It's pre-K 3 to 2nd grade. It was so cute and small, and the school had trampolines outside of every classroom. And I just thought it would be a really good start for my son. At the time, they were changing principals. So me personally, I felt a little uneasy about what the school was going to look like moving forward. So I ultimately didn't send my son there, but I was really close, and that would have just been a transfer. There's no application process to that at all. So basically, just to add to the pile, you can pretty much go to any neighborhood school. If there's a dual language program that you really like, or some other STEAM program. Reagan has a garden that they do. So I find that fascinating. So, unfortunately, you can go to any transfer neighborhood school, and it just, it does add on. But like I said, if there's a program, all you have to do is, we'll go through it in a little bit on the website, but it's the same process as applying to one of these transformation or choice schools. But it's much easier to transfer. Okay, so I don't know if and I don't really want to get into it if you already understand it, but there are differences between the magnet schools and the choice or transformation schools. Basically, if we're talking about sort of the early childhood, pre-K, kindergarten program, the magnet schools are going to be Dealey and Stone. Really, from what I can remember. And all that means is that you apply to those schools. Those are Montessori schools. And then once you apply, then you take your child in. And obviously, I don't know now exactly if you have to go into the school this year, but you would normally take your child in, and they would take your child to a classroom, and you would do it. The child would do a test. I haven't experienced that. I have some friends. They're not really sure what's on the test. I think the child has to be able to write their name. Again, this is for kindergarten, and things like that. So magnet is only 2 schools that I know of. The rest of the choice or, transformation schools, that is an application process that's typically a lottery. Number 4, don't underestimate convenience. What works best for your family? Like I said, for us, Rosemont, we can walk there. It was great for exercise, but you have to consider what's best for you. Is it you work in this neighborhood and you're on your way there and that's the best option for you? What works best for your family, basically. Number 5, don't judge an elementary based on its middle school. I think Carrie would also say the same thing for high school. Don't judge a middle school based on the pattern school for the high school. You can change schools anytime you want, whatever makes you feel comfortable. Maybe your kid is going to end up applying to Griner, which is a magnet school in the middle school. So you make the best decision for now. And then number 6, get to know the numbers and then look beyond the numbers. There's other things to consider: the teacher-student ratio, the climate survey, how many field trips in a normal year would they make, how many specials or electives, and then how much turnover is there, whether it's, with the teachers or the changing demographics of the school. So, there's more than just the testing when you're looking at a school. And then number 7, determine what you value most and what you're willing to compromise. So these are just suggestions when you're looking at a school. Again, don't just zero in on one thing. There's a lot of different things that go into making this decision. There's another thing that I want to share with you, if I can find it quickly. I should have pulled it up already. It's on the Raising Oak Cliff website. And there's a mom a couple of years ago who decided, I'll try and share one more time, Chrome. For her, she made a checklist, and it's under research. And for her, there was way more than all of that. For her, so if you go to raisingoakcliff.com/education, the second thing down is called comparing schools. And so she made this document, which is crazy. Okay, it's automatically downloading. But for her, it was, and I know you can't read this, but I can. So she wanted to compare 5 different schools. So she made this checklist: distance from home, on the way to work, school hours, before care, after care, the school has, and all of these things that she thought was important. Again, has a gym, a playground space, a library, a computer lab, a PTO/PTA. So I want you to know that this document is available to you if you wanted to download it on raisingoakcliff.com/education. If you are weighing all these different categories, this might help you organize what you see is the best fit for your family. Also on this site, now it hasn't been updated this year, but I think this document is super helpful, and it might answer some of those questions like, what's the difference between a magnet or a choice or a charter? So at the very top, it's called Navigating DISD School Choice or Choice Schools. And if you click on this, it's a 6-page document that was created by someone in our neighborhood. She's got 3 kids, and so she's well-versed in touring schools, DISD. And so I think this might answer some questions that you might have. And then also, so I've also linked to the uninformed parent on this page. And then there's a little roundup of some things that we talked about back in 2019 you might find interesting. There's also names of people that you might recognize, of people who spoke about particular schools, right? So Lindsay Duncan lives in the neighborhood. She's got 3 kids that go to Rosemont. Or Caitlin Snow lives in the neighborhood, have 2 kids that go to Hogg. So if you have questions about some of these schools in our neighborhood, you might reach out to them on Facebook, or I can put you in touch with them. So I think that might be everything that I have. Give me 1 second. All right, just saying goodnight. That is really everything that I wanted to talk about. So if there's something that you guys have questions about, particular schools, what it's like to apply, how do you navigate the Dallas ISD website, because it has so much information. So I'll let you guys chat. If you have questions, you can unmute yourself or put it in the chat, whatever you need.
Hey, Amanda.
Hi, Liz.
Siblings. If one sibling gets in, if it's a lottery school, is that given any weight?
It is. So I think they really try to prioritize siblings. So for instance, I know someone who got into solar prep for girls, and because she got in, the younger son was then automatically allowed into solar prep for boys. So it is definitely given a priority, and things like, Dealey, a lot of people in this neighborhood really love Dealey. I would hate to make that drive every day, but maybe it makes sense for people, or maybe they put their kids on the bus. I don't know. But year after year, there's hardly any seats available for Dealey because they do make priorities for siblings. What else? Any questions about particular schools? Oh, here we go.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was going to ask you, I have my 5-year-old would be my first kid in school. And I'm literally zero point 0.4 miles away from Rosemont, 0.4 from Con. I went to Rosemont. I attended the seminar yesterday for DISD, so I'm kind of overwhelmed with everything. I mean, I've heard really good things about Rosemont, but I don't know if it's like I think you just mentioned it's not a choice school. What makes it so special, and how would I even navigate? Because it seems like so impossible to get in from what I've heard.
So do you know what your home school is? What you're like, you put in your address and it tells you this is your home school?
Yeah, when I put it in, it tells me Con is my home school.
Okay.
And
So again, next year, I think, especially Rosemont, but I think a lot of public schools, they just have openings, right? A lot of people pulled their kids, or just didn't go to pre-K. So I think there's just still going to be a lot of uneasiness about going to public school next year. That's my guess. I don't know anything. But my experience is, if Rosemont is not your home school and you apply to a transfer, they will accept you. I know that their attendance is down this year. There are still a lot of students doing virtual schools, but all you have to do, don't be nervous about it. If you want to go to Rosemont, you'll get into Rosemont. Now, I think I'll let Liz talk about what makes Rosemont special. I sent my son last year and we had a good experience. The only thing I would say is Rosemont is a huge school. There were 4 pre-K classes, 2 of them dual language and 2 of them English only. It was good. He got exposure to a wide variety of people. There's dance, there's art, there's music, and they go to the gym and the library once a week. So every day they go to a different class. Again, I'm talking about a non-pandemic year. But there's 24 kids in a class. Now, again, I'm talking about pre-K, and in pre-K, there's a teacher's assistant. But a couple of years ago, they have 2 buildings, if you're not aware. One is lower campus and one is upper campus. In the lower campus, they had 675 kids from pre-K to 2nd grade. It's a lot, but I had a good experience. It was fine. So Liz, I don't know if you want to talk about kindergarten this year and what that's like.
Yeah, so my daughter's in kindergarten at Rosemont, and she did pre-K there last year. We were new to Oak Cliff, and we came from the suburbs where oftentimes the school ratings aren't high, whatever value you put into school ratings, right? What does that even mean? It means like high test scores. Well, okay, if you have a school that has a mix of income levels, then the test scores aren't going to be as high, so the rating's not going to be as high. That wasn't a big deal for me. It was a bigger deal for my husband to go to a higher scoring school. So Rosemont's not our home school. We're a transfer. We're only like 2.5 miles away or something. It's like a 7-minute drive at most. And that's where he felt more comfortable going, is because the ratings were better. It's my first kid in grammar school, so I don't really have a lot to compare it to. But starting this year, they started, and I'm not going to get the verbiage right, so I apologize. They started dual language or language immersion Spanish, and my daughter Quinn is in it. So her day is supposed to be entirely in Spanish, with the exception of when they do math for 45 minutes out of the day, and their specials when they go to gym or library. As she comes from a home that's entirely English speaking, so for us, that's a great advantage. That's easily a reason why we may very well stay with Rosemont for a really long time, because I think that that's incredibly useful, and that's not something that she'll get in our household. If that's not something that's necessarily going to benefit your student, I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know. I think perhaps another thing that people really love about Rosemont is a strong PTA, maybe unlike some other neighboring schools. That's an assumption. Truthfully, those are the really only kind of concrete type things I know that are positives about Rosemont. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I hope that helps a little bit. We'll talk about, I see Beth has a question about going through the website. We're going to talk about that, which I think will help you. Is it Nuvia?
Yes, Nubia.
Okay, so we'll look at that in just a little bit. I want to talk about some of these other questions. Ashley, I see your question about the wiggle room for the summer birthday. So the rules are your child has to be X age on September 1st. And there is absolutely no wiggle room on that. On September 1st, your kid has to be 6 to enter kindergarten. So that would be 5 to enter pre-K. Is that right? I think I have those numbers right. I have a friend who wanted to send her daughter to Rosemont pre-K, Rosemont kindergarten. She was 5 on September 1st. She turned 6 on September 2nd, and they wouldn't let her in. So they are pretty adamant. She ended up sending her daughter to St. Cecilia's for a year for kinder. And then after that, she was able to go into first grade at Rosemont. So no DISD school will accept your student for the birthday is September 1 cutoff. So that is 100%. The fees for enrolling into pre-K at Rosemont. So there are fees. You can apply for, I don't know what the cutoff is, but there is a number that if your household makes this or below, you can have free pre-K. But if you're above that cutoff, 2 years ago it was $525. They have since lowered it to $475. I think it's $475 a month. And there are different ways you can pay it. You can pay it per month, you can pay it for the full year, or you can pay it for the, every 3 months or 6 months. I encourage you, anyone who's really interested in pre-K, keep your eye on the news. The Texas legislature is talking about making cuts to education, pandemic. So there's less money, even though I keep reading that Texas is doing okay in terms of money coming in, but you know, they're free. They've been offering all these pre-K programs, and I think because the numbers are down this year, that may be one place where they cut. I really hope that's not true, but point being is, if that's important to you, if you want that in your public schools, I would encourage you to reach out to your representatives, to your school board. Ben Mackey is our DISD board representative. I'm going to show you that in just a minute too. Before 2 years ago, I knew nothing about public education. I didn't know who my DISD board representative is. I have to say he's really nice, super open. If you have any questions, he's willing to help you in any way. So I just want to throw that out there too. So yes, there's a fee, $475-ish, somewhere around there. When should one apply for a child going into pre-K or kindergarten? That is a great question, Barbara. That's a great setup. It's supposed to be January 31st. That was the day that the district has been talking about for months now. But I think the schools are pushing back, and the principals are pushing back and just saying that they haven't gotten hardly any engagement from families with questions about schools. You know, normally they would have all these parents coming in and doing all these tours. I'm pretty sure they just pushed it back to February 7th. So that's the day. And from here, when I'm done with this, I'm looking on my phone just to make sure that is the day. That's the day where you have to apply for any transfer school or any of these choice or transformation schools. So I'll jump to the website right after this, but I want to make sure that I'm telling you the right day because they just changed it. No. Yeah, February 7th. So February 7th is the day that you need to turn in your application for transformation, choice, or transfer. And then you have to go in and do all the ranking and stuff like that. Now, when you're applying to kindergarten or pre-K, let me share my screen again. So here's this website. And there's something else that I want to show you for those that are interested in some of these magnet schools or choice schools. So here's the website, dallasisd.org/choose Dallas ISD. And of course, you know, Dallas tries to give you all of the information, which I understand, but it's just like, where do I start? What's going on? So they try to break down the schools. So you have Montessori, which if you're not familiar with any of these schools, put it in the chat and we'll go over it. I don't want to talk about things that you already know the answers to. But the one thing that I wanted to point out on here, and it's not very clear and it's not very easy to find, but on some of these options, some of them, they offer how many seats are available at that school for next year. Right? So this is a magnet school, and a magnet school would be Dealey. Dealey would be, I think, one of these magnet schools. So you go in here, let me see if I can find it, elementary school. Okay, so here's Dealey, and it tells you that there are 33 seats for pre-K for Dealey next year. So if you're interested in pre-K, it's a good time to apply. If your child is going into kindergarten, I would look at a different school. There are no seats available for Dealey for next year. Now, Harry Stone, which is in South Oak Cliff, there's 10 seats available for kindergarten. So if that's something that you're interested in, just know that there are 10 seats available. And I'm pretty sure Liz, you were asking about the sibling option. This takes into account siblings. Right? So again, I think Dealey, because there's so many siblings that attend there, there's no seats available. That's why it says 0, because all of the people coming into kindergarten are all siblings. So pointing that out there. So just to go back to this school choice site, I should have brought something to drink. If you click on some of them, now I've been told the site is supposed to show all of them, but they're not up there yet. So if you click on these options, it's supposed to have another link that gives you how many seats are available. And it doesn't, and it's really frustrating. And I've asked them like many times to add these. Just, it gives you more information. It makes you make a well-informed decision. Just like I said, Dealey has no seats open. So, you know, unless you want to be put on a wait list, but I just don't think that that's a good investment in your time. So keep looking for that. I'll keep pressing the district to post those numbers somewhere, because otherwise, why apply if there's no seats available? Okay, I'm going to go back to I want to see the chat because there was another question about this. I'm going to stop sharing because I can't see the chat. And oh, okay. So someone was asking about enrolling in pre-K/kindergarten. Okay, so on this website, dallasisd.org/choose Dallas ISD, there's a link here for pre-kindergarten programs. So that's kind of like a different thing. So you do apply for the school, but then you also have to apply for pre-K. And it tells you which schools here are accepting, but that's not even the right. Let's see, oh, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Hold on. Like, that's weird. Okay. So, Dallas ISD early. So within Dallas ISD, this early learning program is kind of separate from the rest of the application. And also, this is frustrating from a parent perspective because I don't know which schools have pre-K and which don't. I will find that link and before we're done, because there is a list of which schools have pre-K and things like that. So you go down to this button here that says pre-K registration. Now, I don't know because I didn't look at this year, but typically this pre-K registration date is around the same date as the rest of the application dates. So I would say February 7th. I don't know that for sure. You can apply for pre-K anytime, but the way that I experienced it at Rosemont is first come, first serve, right? So if you apply first, you're more likely to get in before other people that apply right before school starts. The idea is that they try and make sure that they have enough staff for everyone that's applying. Same goes for kindergarten, right? They want you to apply earlier so that they can plan, especially if you're a transfer, that typically won't say no to transfers. At least that's what they told me at Rosemont. You know, they just need to know that you're applying and that you're going to go there so that they can staff appropriately. So this is another really important website if you're interested in pre-K, dallasisd.org/pre-K. Again, it's its own thing. So they have staff dedicated to this. So I would contact them specifically if you have questions.
Amanda,
Yes.
this is Asia. So the choice site, it did when I so for instance, I registered or I applied for Axel, who's 3 going on 4, so for pre-K 4, I logged into the Choice site, which I thought was the pre-K site because the links were kind of getting, it was getting hard to follow where I was going.
Uh-huh.
And so are you saying that if, even though I went through that Choice site and applied for pre-K programs through there, I still need to probably go to this pre-K site, you think?
Well, I think if it's a choice school, you probably did the right thing. This is more this early childhood site. I think would be more about like, I want to go to Rosemont pre-K, and so I need to register through here.
Okay, so if it's a neighborhood school, not one of the transformation or choice or
Right.
magnets. Okay.
Now, what they might do is they might say, oh, you got in, so now you have to apply for pre-K. Like, it's just almost like two separate programs.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well,
Um,
if I figure it out, I'll let you know.
okay. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing because, again, I can't see the questions and look at my screen at the same time. Okay, so there's another question about I'm getting into the Spanish immersion program at Rosemont. And I would presume that this is true for everyone or for all the schools. But you have, and Liz, if you can, I'd like for you to chime in, but I'm pretty sure that you have to apply for that as well.
Yes. And I thought, well, what are the parameters for getting in, right? And what the impression I got, and I think Amanda, you and I were sitting together in this meeting about it last spring. The impression I got was they will accommodate as many students that want to do immersion at Rosemont. So just apply, so that, like, the planning, so that we can accommodate, is the impression I got. They would not say, okay, we've got, 100 spots, so fill it, turn in your application, starting Feb 1 and it's first come, first serve. They didn't say anything about a lottery. They didn't say anything about, it's not like you have to take a test or anything. It's like, build it and they will come, like, apply and we will accommodate. So
Right.
That's all.
It used to be a lottery. That's how it used to be set up, but it is no longer that way, but you still do have to apply. All right. So Barbara, for the getting more information about the immersion program, I think once that you're in a school, I would just go ahead and contact the school, because that would be, there is a separate application for that, and they do test for that as well. Yes, they do. I'm pretty sure, because they want to know the level of, at what level are your kids? Do they speak Spanish? Do they understand X, Y, or Z? Okay, Lindsay, your question is, what is the student-teacher ratio currently at Rosemont? I can tell you I had a conversation today about first grade. A friend of mine told me her son is in first grade, and typically I think you would have about, Rosemont always applies for waivers. I think you're supposed to have anywhere from like 18 to 22 kids in the classroom. And when you start to inch up, you have to apply for a waiver from the state. And typically I would say 24 is about right. However, she told me there's 14 kids in the first grade class, in her son's first grade class, but that there's a multitude of students online. So that particular class is a hybrid class. So the teacher is responsible for at home and in-student kids. Now, Liz, can you share how many kids are in your daughter's class?
So for Kinder at Rosemont, they have teachers. Some teachers assigned. The teachers are either assigned. Or to be entirely virtual or entirely in person. So like our teachers, my daughter goes in person, so she's only teaching in person kids. And then there's a couple of virtual classes that are only virtual.
And do you know how many kids are in twins class?
I think about 15.
Which,
And the pandemic, you know, they're in little desk clusters of like 3 or 4 with clear plastic in between them, and then a pretty good amount of space in between the desk clusters.
Which is way down. You know, there's a lot of people staying home. When I looked back when school was starting, across the board, every elementary school, it was almost half and half. Half the kids were going to choose to stay home and half would be in person. So, you know, I don't know what next year is going to look like, but so 675, divide that by 2, and that's how many kids are going to Rosemont right now in person. Okay, so after pre-K 4 is kindergarten, yes. So I'm trying to remember because yes, so you have to be 5 to go into kinder. September 1st is 5. Because my kid's weird and it's that September birthday, and I always forget because he's already 6 and then kindergarten. So yes, you have to be 5 to go into kinder. Okay, so I can explain the different types of schools in just a minute. Okay, and so another attendee wants to hear from families that decided to go from Montessori, DISD, or private to non-Montessori. I mean, I could give you my experience, but Daisha, if you're available, can you talk about going from Spring Hill to, well, you're down, is he downtown?
No, we applied transfer to Mockingbird Elementary.
Oh.
So, and they, you can transfer to any school, but Mockingbird and Lakewood don't accept transfers with the exception of for their dual language program. And I think literally the only reason why we were able to get a slot, it was last minute, was because of COVID, because they're just, you know, they have a very small zone and they're pretty much usually at capacity. But because of COVID, they had spaces. And so that's how we ended up getting in. And it's, so we had to apply through the transfer application last year. I don't know what that's like this year. I think with the website this year, it's a little easier because everything is more succinct. So you can select a school, and I think under the school, it'll have an option for like transfer, dual language, that sort of thing. Transferring from Montessori to public, it has been a little rough because in Montessori, the idea is that kids are independent. They have some autonomy about what they're doing. And in a traditional school, public school setting in particular, and this isn't project-based, this is just your traditional school, pretty much everybody's kind of doing the same thing. So everybody's got to do the same thing. You've got to raise your hand to go to the bathroom. They don't have a bathroom in the classroom. There aren't like stations like what do they call it, life skills or something to that effect, you know, basically where the kids are like cleaning and all that stuff. It's primarily focused on the academic perspective. So that has been challenging. And then just COVID in general, because of Izzy's personality, she's super affectionate. So when she's sad or if something happens, you know, they're not technically supposed to hug and all that stuff. And so that's been harder for her because I feel like the Montessori environment is just a little more nurturing. So that fostered that part of her personality anyway. And then she's just already that way. So that's been a little tough, but Mockingbird has actually been pretty great. As she's gotten used to it, you know, she's done a lot better. She's just getting more used to the rigor and sort of the schedule. There are certain things I don't like. I do think that the class is a little large, but I think that's just what it's going to be if you're going to a public school that is a popular public school.
So when you say large, what does that mean?
I think right now her class she told me, I feel like there are 14 or 15 in person and then maybe another 5 online, but they usually have, I think, 22. So I think typically the class is about 22, and they don't have teacher assistants in kindergarten. So it's just one teacher. And so she's doing, I think they have a floating teacher assistant. And so the teacher is literally doing online and in person at the same time. And I commend her every time because it's just incredible, because you can tell it's just a lot. You know, I couldn't imagine trying to hold a meeting in person and online at the same time. So that's what she's doing.
And I would say I mean, that size is pretty typical for a school, you know, like 18 to 22 students per class per teacher. You know, it's going to be a little lower this year, but
Yeah,
overall, I think that's pretty,
that's what to be expected. Yeah.
yeah. But again, there are schools with smaller classes. So, you know, I was talking about Harley earlier. That definitely has smaller classes. Reagan, I think, is a smaller school, and they like to advertise that because, you know, they get more attention. The students get more attention.
Another one that may have smaller classes that's not, I don't think it's DISD, but it's charter, but it's Lumen. So Lumen is also Montessori, and I believe they have 3 campuses. 2 are in Lakewood area, and the classes are smaller.
And then if you wanted to talk about the Montessori program, so I know someone was asking about Montessori. If you're not familiar with Montessori, I had never heard of it until my son went to Spring Hill. Basically, it is more the child independently decides what they want to do. I mean, you will learn math, you will learn social skills, you will learn X, Y, and Z, but the child decides, you know, now is a learning time. You decide what you want to focus on. Do you want to learn math this way or that way? And they go get a tray typically, and they can learn how to count by using beads and more manipulatives. So it's not just sitting at a desk writing on a board. You know, so there are a couple of Montessori schools. One is downtown. That's a new school this year. I've heard a lot of good things about it. And again, if there's any one school that you're interested in, please let me know, and I can make sure to get you in touch with the family that currently goes there. I've also heard a lot of good things about Hernandez, which is, again, over there by UT Southwestern. It's a smaller school with lots of growing options. I think there's one of those schools that started at pre-K to second grade, and every year they're adding another grade. So they have a lot of growing space at their current school. Dealey, Stone, those are the 4 Montessori schools that I can think of. The other schools, you know, I send my son to all boys school. The Solar Girls School is really popular. I've heard talk of DISD expanding Solar Girls to a second school because it is so popular. You know, my experience at Solar Prep, they say that they're a STEM or a STEAM school. What that means, in case you don't know, and I can never remember all the words, but science, technology, education, arts, and math. So that's a STEAM school. And basically, what does that mean? That means that they find ways to teach the kids outside of the classroom, like using Legos to build things, or this is silly. So, you know, those little crappy plastic things that you get in Happy Meals or whatever. So my son built this in his STEAM class. So they're plastic straws, and we had a marble at home, and this is his own homemade maze. So things like that, that's what STEM and STEAM mean. But STEM and STEAM could be at any neighborhood school. It doesn't have to be like a transformation school. So if that's something that you're interested in, it's just thinking about learning in a different way. I'm trying to think of some of the other programs that are available. If there's something particular, there's a word that you don't understand, please feel free to ask me what that means. I'm looking back at some of the questions. What are the dual language options outside of the neighborhood schools? For example, I've heard there's a dual language immersion option at Solar Prep. Are there dual language opportunities at Montessori? Oh, look, Liz told me, E for engineering. Okay. So at Solar Prep, yes, there is. So Rosemont has decided as of last year, they're doing immersion. And maybe Liz can remind me exactly what that means, but there is a difference between dual language and immersion. Basically, I think it's a little bit more time spent in Spanish. They're just, I don't know. I don't know if
One of the key differentiators is that when you have an immersion that's, in particular, I think it's two-way, they have to have a balance of 50% native speakers and 50% English speakers. So the idea is that they're really serving the native speakers with supplementing with native English speakers. So that's the main thing. And the one way, so like Izzy's in a one-way dual language at Mockingbird, and it's because they don't have enough native speakers. So it's predominantly, there are some native Spanish speakers there, but it's predominantly English speakers. And so they are supposed to be speaking, I think, 60% plus Spanish with math and English, with math and English. But because of the current environment, they have to be doing less than 50%.
So, right. So the immersion is only, as far as I know, at Rosemont. Now, there may be other schools, but I know they have made it a point to say we are an immersion school. But there are other schools that have dual language, and I know at Solar Prep for Boys they do. Immersion is the classroom learning is all Spanish with the exception of math. Now, that's from Barbara, who's on the call. I will say, I attended a meeting last year at Rosemont, and they have a chart that basically says teachers speak Spanish during this amount of time, during this class, during this day. But I still felt like that left room for a lot of English because you do have students that speak all English or all Spanish typically. So I don't think it is all Spanish all the time. I know last year at Rosemont for kindergarten, someone who was in the dual language program, his teacher didn't speak Spanish. They had other teachers come in and teach, those reading classes or those writing classes in Spanish. So I don't know if it was just that class, but again, he was in the dual language class, but she was an English speaking teacher.
If I can, our immersion class is taught by a Spanish, a bilingual teacher. And, we did the first 3 weeks virtual. So I really heard that time. And then we had to do a week in quarantine right before the holidays. And so I heard how she was continuing to instruct them. And at 5 years old, how it works out, where she's supposed to be doing everything in Spanish except for math. How it works out is she says an instruction in Spanish and then she says it in English. I mean, I don't know how other way you can do it.
Yeah.
When you're done, because he just had a snack.
And majority of her class are native Spanish speakers. So nevertheless, she still is pretty accommodating, surprisingly so, of the English speakers in the class. I don't know. I don't know enough about the research about Spanish immersion programs to know if that's the way to go or not. Obviously, plus with the pandemic, and they have masks over their faces, so the kids can't really see their mouths. I feel like that can affect it too. But so it's pretty much, she says something in Spanish and then she repeats it in English. I mean, it's kind of all day like that.
The only thing that I want to mention about dual language immersion, whatever it is that, whatever program you apply to, again, based on a meeting I went to at Rosemont, and I've heard this a couple of times, that students will fall behind in kindergarten and first grade, and then at second grade there's just something that like makes sense, and the English speakers, let me say, English speakers will catch up to the rest of their classmates. So you're getting a lot of information thrown at you in Spanish, and your brain is probably just going like, what the heck? So students do fall behind, and I think that does worry some families, but research has shown that by second grade, those students who are speaking Spanish or learning Spanish catch up to their English speaking counterparts. Then again, I know families that have tried the dual language and they ended up pulling their kids because it just wasn't a good fit. So you just have to do whatever works best for you.
Amanda, for Solar Prep girls, I went to the info session right before this call, and they said that they only have one dual language class, or one. I guess theirs is immersion because it's catering towards non-English speakers.
Okay.
And they only have, they said maybe they used last year or the previous years they had maybe 10 to 14 spots for English speakers. And she said that they don't actually inform you of whether you will actually be in that class until August. So for Solar Prep, if dual language is your primary, that may not be the best first choice.
Right. There was, Lindsay, I don't know if I answered your question about, are there dual language opportunities at Montessori? Yes, I know at Hernandez near UT Southwestern, they do have dual language. I don't know about downtown. I don't know if Daisha knows that.
They're supposed to, but I didn't actually go this go round. And then Mata, which is off of 30.
Yeah, I don't often think of Mata because I feel like, kind of like Dealey, it's too far away.
Oh.
unless you live over there. But I also know that Mata is another really popular school. But that, you're right, that is a dual language Montessori school. Okay, I think that's all the questions. If I have missed someone or you have more questions, feel free to add them. Otherwise,
I have another question.
yeah, go ahead.
How do I find test scores for the different schools?
Well, okay.
I tried searching and have not been very successful.
So I might, unless someone on the call has suggestions. So they're sort of changed recently.
Okay.
2 years ago, and they're going more toward a like a ABC report card type thing. And I definitely find it confusing. Report card, ISD. No. I might have to respond to you guys separately. DEA report card 2019 probably.
Mm.
Oh, I just saw it. Okay, it's supposed to be on the Dallas ISD website, but honestly, I can never...
I couldn't find it.
So I just Googled TEA report card.
Okay.
Let's see if this comes up and it's actually what I want to see. And it's pretty fascinating because not only does it give a report card about how the students are doing, but it also, they've started asking teachers about how they feel about the schools.
Okay.
And so it does get, I feel like they're starting to provide a more like well-rounded view of the school. But let me go back here because the other thing I wanted to quickly point out to you guys is also on the DISD website. If you're not aware, and again, I wasn't aware until I started doing my digging, what our district was, right? So we're in District 7. Oak Cliff is in the DISD District 7 map. So keep that in mind when, you know, they're talking about different areas or districts. And again, Ben Mackey is our representative. But within here, you can kind of see what schools are in that district, right? So it doesn't mean a lot because, like I said before, you can apply to whatever school you want to, but just in case you're curious, sort of, I would assume everyone in our district would be getting the same representation and love from our trustee. But in case that makes any decisions harder or not. Okay, so I clicked on that and nothing happened. And then if you go to, it's supposed to also be on all the websites. But again, every school website is different. A majority of them look the same, but it doesn't necessarily like show you the report card. Oh, and also we can talk about transportation and after school programs if you want to. I wasn't planning on it, but this is, if you have questions, please ask questions. Let's see if it's under academics. No.
I just saw one thing I wanted to ask about. So I thought that the date to apply was January 31st. And then I just saw on your screen it said February 7th.
Yeah, so they just changed it this week. According to the district, they were getting a lot of pushback from principals on they didn't have enough time to talk with parents and engage in families. If there is a school that you're interested in, go to their website because more than likely there's going to be a virtual tour. You know, Daisha was saying she did one for Solar Prep for Girls. I know Solar Prep for Boys has one next week at like 9 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, they are trying to be as available as possible. Specifically about Rosemont, if you want to talk to someone about Rosemont, just call the school and ask for Brenda Landeros. She's basically the community liaison. So she can answer any questions about the school, how to apply, you know, any questions that you might have about immersion, how many students are there. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in the chat if I can. No, I can't. I will put this in the chat. This, once I clicked on Dallas ISD, it downloaded a Google Doc that's only 926 pages that you can go and look at ethnicity, how many students, what was their grade, how much money they're getting. So let me try and do that here. All right, so hopefully, oh no, that was just a Lillian, hold on. All right, so if that doesn't work, I search for TEA report card 2019. 2019, 2020. So hopefully that'll be helpful. So just to get back here. Oh, I already closed it. Let's see. So, but it looks fascinating. So let's find. Oh, so this, you might actually want to go look at the previous year because it's not giving ratings for any schools because of the pandemic. But it's still fascinating to see the breakdown of race. You know, maybe maybe you can compare the numbers of how much money they're getting based on how many students are applying. Look, it does give you class sizes by grade. So kindergarten is supposed to be 15-1. So, you know, different from 2 years ago, but this document would probably be really interesting to a numbers person versus Hernandez. See, no, that's not right. Reagan. Apparently I can't spell. Reagan. There we go. No, yeah, that's Reagan. So something for you to dig into if that's something that interests you. Let's see, I saw another question. Let me stop sharing. What was your question? Oh, you want numbers. Is that what you wanted, Lindsay?
Yeah, I just wanted how to access the report card. I might have missed you. My computer just went black, so I just came back.
It's okay. So if you're able to look at the chat, I put in a link where you can search for Dallas ISD. If that doesn't work, you can Google TEA report card 2019 to 20.
Yeah, that's working.
Okay, cool.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, so Sheena asked, does Rosemont have after school and what are the school hours for Rosemont? This year is different from last year. This year they added 15 minutes to the school year to allow more time to screen students, do temperature checks. Let's see, Liz, what time does school start for you?
8.
Okay.
So it's not clear to me if release is technically 3 or 3:10. It's at the beginning it was 3. I think it's technically 3:10 now.
So I have to say, I feel like each school is a little different. We're doing virtual school and his school doesn't start till 8:20. But I do know normally schools are open around 7:30 and I think all the schools offer breakfast and lunch at no cost. So breakfast is available. You can go in, sit down in the cafeteria. For kindergarten, you know, again, it's different at every school, but specifically at Rosemont, you can go in and have breakfast and then you go to your waiting spot, whatever waiting spot that is. Pre-K is in kindergarten, kinder was in the gym, in the auditorium. Some kids meet in the gym. Some kids go just directly to their classrooms. So every school is going to be different. You know, Rosemont has its own workflows that tend to work. Yeah, so for us, virtual, it doesn't matter when school gets out, but typically 3 to 3:15. Rosemont usually has Big Thought as their aftercare program. I also know that the Kid Springs Rec Center will pick up from Rosemont, but they have a limited amount of students that they take. and I think they keep their kids till 5:30, I think is their cutoff time at Kid Springs. And then Big Thought, I think, goes later than that. I'm not quite sure the time, but it does go after that. So again, that's an important question about, do schools have aftercare if that's really important to you? I would say most schools do. I'm pretty sure that Hogg does. Some of the other schools in the area definitely do. Okay, I think I've answered all the questions. I see people dropping off. If I'm going to put my email address in here. So if you have any other questions, that's my personal email address. And then that's the Raising Oak Cliff one. Either one, it doesn't matter. Again, if there's a specific school that you have questions about, send me a note. I'll hook you up with another family that goes there. We can talk a little bit about the, let me share my screen one more time, the application process. But essentially, I haven't done it yet, but I did log in. I'm not planning on sending my son anywhere else. But so you log in to this site, which is a little different from the other site. This is choice.dallasisd.org. Now, this is the site where you log in if you're going to transfer or you want to apply to one of the choice schools, which is one of those transformation schools, right? So it's the lottery school or the magnet school. So if you're just going to go to your neighborhood school, you're just going to apply to that school like normal. Also, for no one who's ever applied to a public school before, you have to apply every year. You just basically have to tell them, I'm going to your school next year. So you don't have to go through all these shenanigans, but you need to let them know that you're going to come back next year. That's one thing that I don't think anyone really realized after the first year. You don't have to apply, but you just have to basically tell them you're coming back. So you log into this site, choose.dallasisd.org. I already went through and I filled all this stuff out. This is just the generic crap, your kid's name, your name, all that information. And then you go in here and you can pick some schools. So I'm kind of afraid to like go through the whole process because I like our school and I'm not going to send him somewhere else. But I think the idea here is that you pick 5 schools. That's all you can choose from. You can't say, oh, I'm interested in 20 schools. You have to narrow it down to 5 schools. And then on the next page, you go and you rank them in order that you want to go there. So, ideally, I think they want to place you at the school that you want to go to, but, maybe it's Dealey and there's no positions for kindergarten. So then they'll go to the next spot. Typically, you find out around the middle of March, spring break, somewhere around there. I've found that every school is different, and I don't know why, because you would think that the district is in charge of the process, so everyone would find out at the same time. But last year, it was definitely spread out over a couple of weeks. People found out typically from an email from the district. You're on a wait list, or you're going to the school next year, and then they give you a certain amount of time to decide, yes, I want to go there, or no, I don't, because obviously other people want to go to that school as well. And then there is this other school finder site that they keep promoting on their webinars. So if you go, I don't know what this link is, but dallasisd.schoolmint.net. They call it School Finder, and you can find your neighborhood school by doing that. Or is there a particular program that you're interested in, right? Kindergarten, pre-K, whatever. Let's do pre-K 4 because I know some people are interested in that. do my home address, pre-K options, full day pre-K. So it's pretty good at narrowing down things that you might be interested in. So here's a list of all the pre-K programs across DISD. So it's a lot, and this is full day. So this is another helpful website. So again, I did pre-K. You could go back and do kinder with dual language. So let's see what that looks like. So we'll do kinder. Okay. So other academic programs, dual language, you know, there's all this other stuff. I just want to point out really fast, Hogg is a neighborhood school. It's over there by Kid Springs. That is a small school. They have been designated this year as a new tech model. Basically, that just means that they're focused on technology. It doesn't mean that they're doing all technology all the time, but they're doing a lot of projects where they can utilize technology. I know I went and toured the school a couple years ago, and they were focused on project-based learning. Now, that's another term that you may have never heard about, but essentially project-based learning is across all grades, let's take a topic. So let's take safety in your community, right? That could be a topic for the whole school, and then they break it down by grade. So what does that mean in first grade? Like, oh, this is not an example, but this is the only thing that is coming to my mind. Someone stole my bike. How can we make our community safer? And then the students come up with projects about, they're doing research, how many bikes are stolen, you know, how do you recover your bike? So it's taking idea and really delving into that idea. And so there's a couple of project-based learning schools, including PL Prep. That's kind of over by the airport, but I know a lot of people in the neighborhood really like that model and that school. Specifically looking up the new tech definition, and this is from the district. Hogg Elementary and New Tech High School are part of the New Tech Network. This nonprofit organization partners with schools around the country to support them in implementation of project-based learning and technology. So again, exactly what I was talking about, taking idea and breaking it down. Problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and real-world application of concepts are key components in student learning experiences. So New Tech, Hogg is the only elementary school in the district that has gotten extra funding to do this new tech model. Again, Hogg is another small school, dual language. A lot of people in the neighborhood go there. Okay. Best fit. So this is kindergarten schools with dual language. So you can see there's a ton. Let me move this screen out of the way so I can try and zoom in. All right, there we go. Okay. So if we're just looking, so Barbara Jordan, Henderson, STEAM Academy, Con, Idaho, you know, so all of these schools that I'm clicking on, all of these schools offer dual language. So Stevens Park, this is Sidney Lanier. So Sidney Lanier is changing its name. It'll have a different name next year, but I believe this is a magnet school starting at 4th grade. So you can apply to go there, and then at 4th grade, you really need to say, oh, I'm interested in music, that is a really cool school. I took a tour there a couple years ago, and they offer ballet, they have bands. I mean, a lot of things that normal public schools wouldn't do at all. So School Finder, I know the district really pushes this, because if you want something particular, this is a way where you can find those really specific requests that are important to you. Okay, it's 8:30. I need something to drink other than water. Listen, cheers. Oh, look, I have 2 more chats. Let's see. Anything else? Okay, all right, yes. So you do have to apply. It's not, I mean, it's your neighborhood school. So if it's your neighborhood school, you're going to get in. They just need to know that you're coming. You can't just show up on day 1 and say, I'm here. So I have to tell you, I don't remember. If someone wants to, you're welcome, Sheena. If someone wants to jump in real fast about your neighborhood school and applying, I can't remember what that is, but I do know that you have to tell them you're coming. So I don't know if it's just contacting the school and telling them, or I'm pretty sure there's some application that you have to fill out. It's probably, now that I think about it,
Yeah, I think what I saw was that it doesn't open until after this time frame, like this transformation, the choice school time frame for
yeah.
your neighborhood school. So you,
Here.
it was an application. Yeah.
I shouldn't say apply. It's enroll. Enroll is really the right word.
Yeah.
So enroll online today. And it's really easy. I think you do have to submit a recent bill so they know that you're a DISD resident. You're welcome. And seriously, Nubia, email me anytime. I've become friends with some people on Facebook just by answering questions, because I know this whole thing is so overwhelming, especially when trying to fit it into your normal life, and especially in a crazy year. But look, this is the last website, and then I'll stop talking. So after the choice, the transfer, all of that special enrollment, you can go here, dallasisd.org/enroll. And so this would be the new students. Sorry, one other thing I want to say. Dallas ISD for this school year did a really awesome, hey, here's what school looks like during a COVID. But it was really interesting. It was like a week, actually it was a 2-week long seminar on what it's like to go to a Dallas ISD school. Keep your eye out for that. I'll also post it on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Keep your eye open for that, because I learned a lot of things about the school district that I had no idea. I mean, all the counseling and athletics and all the things that they offer. But this last site, dallasisd.org/enroll. All right. Good night, Lillian. 8:30. I've talked way too much, but I'm glad that you guys joined me. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And if I need to do another one of these, I'm happy to do so. And also happy to connect anyone to families that attend schools today. Okay. Bye, you guys. Thanks for joining. You're welcome. You're welcome.